Hi everyone. I'm still outside and it's summer in Denmark and the blackbirds are going berserk in my garden. Um, so sorry about the background noise if you can hear it. I'm not sure you can, but it's very loud for me. Anywho, today I have another tournament for you. This time in Minnesota. Operation Sledgehammer is going on next weekend. And I have the stats, I have the lists, and I am going to go over the meta for you. Hopefully, I'll also have time to do a video about some of the interesting lists, because there are some really interesting builds for this tournament. Let's see what they are doing, shall we? So this is the meta of Operation Sledgehammer, run by the Snafu guys in Minnesota. The event itself is 1,100 points. They have allowed everything up to the deadline. So the armies of the rulebook, the PDFs, all of it is allowed. There are 16 players going, which is, for a Central American state, that's fairly good, isn't it? It's a long drive for anyone going to Minnesota. And it's, of course, the Snafu podcasters that are running it. So, we are seeing, nationwise, we're seeing that Americans are the most popular, which is a deviation. And there's a lot of deviations, by the way, from what we're seeing in metas in other places, both in the US and abroad. Because what we've seen from the last couple of tournaments that I covered, from many places, is that Germany is right now the most important and most popular nation. Not so in Minnesota. US, 4 lists are going, 3 Soviet lists. More Soviets than Germans, which again is like, I would not have predicted that. 2 German lists, 2 British lists, 2 Polish, and 2 Italian lists. And finally, there's 1 Hungarian. What about order dice? Well, as I looked over the lists for this, I was stunned looking over the first half of the lists at how low the order dice was. It is way lower than I had expected. Significantly lower than what I would expect. So, the range, though, is sort of what we could expect for 1,100 points. It's from 10 order dice to 22. But notice how they are distributed. They are very bottom heavy. Very bottom heavy. Most people take 13. That's the most popular choice, but that's only 3 people anyways. The average is 14.6, and this, by the way, includes that 2 people, one of them is taking 20 order dice and one of them is taking 22 order dice. So they are pulling up that average. It's quite a lot. The average is just significantly lower than what we're seeing in other metas. We are seeing a little bit of meta around my Goldilocks zone of 16 to 17 order dice, but not a lot. Not a lot. It is clear that for people going to this tournament, the Goldilocks zone is between 13, 12, 14 order dice, right? Which I think is way too few. But, I might be wrong. It's at least what the meta in Minnesota right now is showing us. Other meta stats. So there's quite a few people that's trying non-armor. So not actually picking an armor choice, an armor platoon, which a couple of top players have been experimenting around. Alistair have been experimenting with that, as has Russell Wright. And we've yet to see it massively redefine, reshape the meta, the meta of international bold action. That hasn't happened yet. But there are a couple of very interesting tryouts for this tournament here, where people are leaning into veterans with anti-tank weapons and a bit of bombardment to support that, for instance. That, I think, is an interesting way to go. And because you don't have any armor yourself, you need that anti-tank. So I think the combination of these elements is really good. I'm not sure it will stand up to other bits of the game. So people, sitting back and gunlining and shooting you at range. But it is at least interesting in a meta where we're quite often seeing a lot of people taking armor platoon, that some people are trying to make no armor work. For the people who are taking armor, there's a lot of them that are only taking 2 armored pieces, which is, again, very, very low for me. Already in version 2, I sort of felt like we had established in the meta that, tank platoons are better than generic reinforced platoons, as they were called in version 2. Sorry, I need a drink. And what we've been seeing in tournaments so far is that if you take armor, take a lot of it, because it will help. It will mean that your chances of winning are bigger. However, a lot of people here are going with like, I need 2, give me 2 chaffies, and then I'm good. Which is an interesting take, and one that we shall have to see how that plays out. Because they might be lacking in armor against some of the players who are taking 5 armored pieces, or they might just feel that their armor is that much better, and it sort of works good enough for them in order for their infantry to be able to do what they need to do. There are 0 engineer platoons being taken, so again, even in a very different meta here in Minnesota from the one I'm used to, nobody really rates engineer platoons, and there's only 1 recce platoon, so that is also not really something that people think is very important, at least not a lot of people. There is quite a lot of observers going, so we have 4 regular artillery observers, forward artillery observers, and 1 air observer going. And one list, an 18 Ordinary Soviet list, has double observers, which is, brutal. The funny thing is that it's not the British players necessarily that are taking all these artillery observers. So there is 1 British artillery observer, but that means there are 3 that are non-British. So that is an interesting bit in itself, that they're not taking double tab observers, they're taking other types of observers. There's only 4 commanders, company commanders. I am putting this down to some people having discovered the awesome qualities of having that 4+ morale bubble and snap 2, and some people just haven't gotten to that point yet, or feel like it's too many points. I think that there are certain builds where the company commander is really beneficial to you, and there are certain builds where he isn't that important, so that might also be it. And there are some snipers, which sort of tells me that there are some players going who may not be like hyper-competitive meta-focused, because if we look at the meta of other tournaments, snipers have completely disappeared, basically. What about builds? I'm seeing a lot of hoarding, so like large, chunky infantry units, some of them even veteran, and a lot of MSU. So people are sort of dealing with the fact that infantry in V3 is a lot more vulnerable by either buying a lot of it, by buying a lot of small units of it, or by buying veterans. That's the way we deal with the new shooting rules of V3. Right, and we've seen this across multiple tournaments in many different locations. So it's a lot of people, like everyone more or less, thinks that this is the way to deal with the new way that shooting works. There is also quite a few gun lines going, and that might be down to what people expect tables to look like at Operation Sledgehammer. If the tables are open or have quite a lot of line of sight, then gun lines will work better. And we saw that at the Swedish Nationals as well this year. Hordes and veterans are way more common at Operation Sledgehammer than mechanized is, although there is some mechanized. And mechanized is basically what I'm seeing a lot of people, at least in Europe, doing to deal with the shooting that is coming at them. They're basically mounting up their guys in armored transports so that at least you'll have to have something anti-tank to kill that transport before the guys actually get hurt. But Operation Sledgehammer doesn't really do that, although there is like 3 or 4 lists that have mechanized elements. And then we have a completely new build, one I haven't seen before, and it is awesome. We have an HMG spam. Write in the comments if you have a good name for that list, because we need an internet name for it. An acronym, some sort. But it's basically one player that's just absolutely spamming out the amount of HMGs he can take. So we have HMG teams on foot, we have half tracks with HMGs, we have motor gun carriages with HMGs. I also think that he brought that. A lot of it. And it's awesome. And I think potentially that could be something. We shall have to see. What are my predictions? I think that we will find at least some of these 5 people in the top 5. Steve has 16 order dice Hungarians with Nimrod spam, company commander, and 2 multi-rocket launchers. That's just a very good build, right? Because having multiple Nimrods, I think he actually has 5. And each of those has a heavy autocannon, right? That's a +3, and you have to drive straight at him. So while you're entering the table, he'll shoot you with his multi-rocket launchers. As you're moving up, he'll shoot you with his Nimrods. +3, very likely to hit because 2 shots. I mean, you'll get shredded. You'll get shredded. And once you get into range of his Hungarian infantry, I think he even put Panzerfausts on those. So if your armor actually manages to push past the Nimrods, he'll kill you in close range. It's a really good build. And one that I myself have been looking very much at. I'm looking at potentially shifting a bit from my Brits and playing something else. Hungarians might be one of those that I, pick up. Thorson is bringing 16 order dice camping Germans, so German infantry with LMGs, and mixed panzers. And I think if he can get those panzers to be exactly where they need to be, because they need to be at different ranges and different locations on the board, but if he gets that exactly right, it's a very good build. Straight in my Goldilocks zone of 16 order dice as well. Salstrom, 14 order dice, Polish Lancers and TKS spam. Now, it is low on order dice, but if he knows how to play cavalry, that combination of having TKS tankettes, which have a light autocannon and recce, and then the Lancers, which is very good once they get into the enemy's back line, that can rip apart an enemy if you're at the right place, if you know how to play cavalry. There's a lot of ifs there, I know, but it is a good build. A little low on order dice, but not massively so. Jeremy, 14 order dice Americans, has a company commander and 4 motor gun carriages. 4. That is a lot of motor gun carriages. And if he can snap to all of them with his company commander, I don't know why I wrote SO, but it's a CO. If he can snap to all of them, he can go and ambush with some. He can shoot with some. I mean, it's just a very good build, isn't it? And then finally, we have someone playing 40k and not bold action as such, is Evan, who's bringing 22 order dice Soviets. And for me, what I read when I read that list was that it was an Imperial Guard army from 40k. It was a leaf blower army with just a horde of infantry that could stay out in front of all the guns, and he could just fire away at you. It's a completely Imperial Guard build. I just was reminded so much of playing 40k like 15 years ago and facing that one player who just castled up with his 700 Imperial Guardsmen and 80 big guns, and that is just it, Evan. And you know, it might actually do really well because you have 22 order dice, and that is very, very high for this tournament. Evan can control the pace of the game. He can control what goes on ambush, what gets shot at, and I mean, he has so many dice that he can waste just forcing the enemy to do something, and then punish them afterwards. So thank you so much, Pat from the Snafu podcast, for sending me all this stuff, and good luck to everyone going. I will see you in the next video where I talk about some of the interesting lists. Cheers.